Those on the West Coast, it's morning time. Okay, I see we're up to 73. So since it's 101, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Wendy Bray, and I am happy to have here today Mr. Joshua Anderson to discuss the VA federal supply schedule. And as a matter of fact, I apologize, give me 1 second. There we go. Now we can see my screen. For today's session, Mr. Joshua Anderson will be discussing the VA federal supply schedule. This basically will be covering exactly what is discussed, how to obtain a VA federal supply schedule, excuse me. The VA federal supply schedule, it is one of the contracting vehicles that we use. And so this webinar will focus on the advantages of small businesses' participation in the federal supply schedule. Also, particularly discussed during this contracting, the federal supply schedule, excuse me, during this unique contracting environment. And so also during today's session, we will explore those key factors to help you assess whether one of our schedules aligns with your company offerings. So again, thank you for attending today. A few of our housekeeping notes. Please insert any questions that you have in the Q&A. The Q&A is definitely different from the chat. If you are on a mobile device, I believe it's 3 dots at the top of the screen. And then you click on those 3 dots, there is 2 tabs. One tab says advanced. Click on that and then scroll down to the bottom and you should see the Q&A. If you are using the web browser or if you're using the WebEx app on a computer or laptop, what you want to do is on the right-hand side, there are 3 dots. Click on those dots and you should be able to see the Q&A to place your questions in there. You're more than welcome to use the chat to communicate with each other, to network with each other. Please put your questions in the Q&A. We will try to get to those questions if you place them in the chat, but we will be monitoring the Q&A first. It's easier for us to track your questions and make sure that we are responding to you during this live session today if you do insert those questions into the Q&A instead of the chat. It's a little bit harder to kind of scroll through there. So what I'm going to do is I will stop sharing my screen so that I can go ahead and, oh, I'm sorry, a few more notes before I hit record on today's session. It will be recorded. You will receive an email about maybe 2 days from now, letting you know that the recording has been uploaded to our YouTube channel. Also, you'll receive within that email the link to where it's uploaded, but then also where the presentation, because we will provide a copy of the presentation, where it's uploaded on our VetBiz channel. So I will go ahead and stop sharing so that you can now see Mr. Anderson's presentation, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to him so that he can introduce himself and then go into discussing the VA federal supply schedule. Thank you for being here, Mr. Anderson. Now over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that. We really are looking forward to this opportunity to talk to you all. It's good afternoon to you all, unless you're in a different region than where we are here. But my name is Joshua Anderson. I've been in the government about 18 years, and I'm going to go ahead and just jump off of the video just so I can go ahead and go through the presentation with you. And thank you so much for attending. There we go. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about the federal supply schedules. First, just a little bit more about myself. I have worked at the federal government, like I said, for about 18 years. And over the past years, I've been very thankful to get the opportunity to serve the veterans by working at the VA. Specifically, I work for the National Acquisition Center at the VA. This team is specifically a contracting support division, and we actually support and educate around the FSS contracting teams. So I don't do specifically the contracting, but we work directly with the contracting teams as they put together the contracts. So my hope today is, if you haven't heard of us before, the VA FSS supply schedules, I just want you to walk away with a basic understanding about who we are and just some tools to work with. You'll get a question when you're going through feedback for this and asking like what your next step. And And in my mind, you haven't heard of us, and so you're just getting to know about us. And so it's like a water spout flying at you, all the information I'm going to be giving. And again, this is the first of 3 presentations. And so if you have questions, by all means, go ahead and provide them. I also provide an email that you can send questions if it's like more specifically about a specific situation, and we can talk one-on-one. It's a general email. I actually review the emails that come in, and I'll provide that. So just trying to give you tools so that when you're sitting there trying to figure out what your next step is, you can say, hey, this is my next step. Okay, I'm gonna learn more about it if I don't know about it. Maybe you've already heard about us. And if you have, great. We just want you to have the opportunity to see the benefits to working with us. And especially see the benefits in light of today's contracting federal government situation. There's a lot that has changed in all aspects. We're always still trying to get the best, procure the best with the taxpayers' dollars, but there's factors that have changed, and there's a lot of things that have gone on. So again, just with that backdrop, we want you to hear the benefits, to see, and so then you can match up and see if there's something that you want your business to take a part of.
So Joshua, before you get started, I love that you were able to introduce yourself, but I want to push out a poll. So we're going to have an entry and an exit poll. This is something new that we're doing for fiscal year 26. But participants here today, we want to be able to assess your knowledge of the topic that we're bringing to you and the knowledge that you have gained after you have attended our sessions, because we want to make sure that we are providing you with the best support possible as you are navigating doing business with VA. So this first question or poll, excuse me, wait, give me 1 second. This first poll that I'm going to open up, it's basically going to gauge your familiarity with this topic, this contracting vehicle, the VA Federal Supply Schedule. Your responses will help us to ensure the information meets your needs, excuse me. And you'll see a question on your screen basically asking you, how familiar are you with this topic? You can respond by not familiar at all. This is your first time. You're somewhat familiar, so you've heard about the Federal Supply Schedule, or you are definitely familiar about it and you have some experience or knowledge in this subject. Even if you haven't submitted a proposal for it, you are knowledgeable. And then there's the very familiar, which is I've already submitted a proposal or I'm already using the VA Federal Supply Schedule. So if you can go ahead and complete that, again, that'll help us to assess throughout our training sessions, because this is a 3-part training session, what information we need to provide to you, or what is some information that we don't necessarily have to provide because you already know it. So we can spend more time focused on other information. While this poll is open for about 5 minutes, I'll leave it open. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you, Joshua, to continue on with your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful. And thank you everyone for providing response on that. So as you can see, I pulled up the first slides. And again, this is just some background for you. Okay, good. This is giving me good feedback already in terms of the survey. But you've already heard my why for why I do my job, and it's the chance to serve veterans. But at a very basic level, working with FSS provides the opportunity for veterans to be served. And you might ask, how does that work, or what does that look like? And in essence, FSS manages the multiple award schedules, and that authority was delegated to us. It's 9 different schedules by GSA. And these commercial award schedules, multiple award schedules, cover commercial, medical equipment, pharmaceuticals, and commercial services. So just keep in mind that these are all commercial items, and there are 9 schedules. So specifically for our veterans in FY24, over $14 billion was procured by the VA using this FSS multiple award schedule, and about $7 billion by other government agencies. This year, FY25, we're still working through, we're finalizing the numbers, but it's going to be more than that for this year. So this is an excellent vehicle for you to get connected in and to provide those services. Because we have a service contract, provide items, provide medicine, equipment for the veterans. Just to give you a quick idea of what kinds of items these $24 billion were, like from our drugs and pharmaceutical schedule, we have multiple source drugs. We have for the medical equipment and schedule. Again, these are the items that some of the items in the categories: oxygen equipment, medication and supply packaging, monitors, more specifically like stress tests. There's a lot of kits, scopes, a lot of different types of scopes. And then on the third schedule, patient mobility, we have transport, lifts, wheelchairs, all these different sorts of things. I'm just trying to give you ideas, so if you know, hey, this is something that we provide, then you kind of have the idea of which schedule to go and take a look at and in order to dig deeper. We also have a dental equipment schedule, and that's dental materials, laboratory equipment for dental, and operating items. We also have chemistry and microbiology on another schedule for different diagnostics. X-ray equipment is another one, with all of the equipment commercial that would be used for X-rays. And then we even have cost per test, like laboratory analyzer, again with commercial medical stuff. We have professional and healthcare staffing, and that does include physicians, registered nurses, and then finally a medical laboratory testing and analysis service, which includes immunology, microbiology, clinical chemistry. So just the rundown of some of the things, get your brain working and get thoughts going through your mind of possibilities. So why should you consider working with the VA FSS schedules? I like to give acronyms to provide ways to remember, and this acronym is SAVE, S-A-V-E, very applicable nowadays and over these last several years here. And it's, first, we want strategic relationships. That's a benefit that you'll find working with FSS schedules. Access. We'll talk some more about when the different agencies can procure, or the federal agencies can always procure off of it, but states actually have the opportunity to procure off the schedules when there's certain events that happen, and if there's an emergency, specific emergency put into place, and it's federal money that's coming into the states, they can buy off these schedules. So that just gives the opportunity throughout all the United States, 50 different states, that you could connect with in doing business. And then the veterans, obviously, for the V, so SAV, because everything we do is to support the veterans. And then expanded network. There's a newsletter that we send out over at FSS where we talk about some of the things that are going on. You can get on the mailing list for that. So just access to materials, information. We have a whole bunch of resources, including our contract catalog, which I'll be covering some more later on in the presentation. But that's basically where you could look up, if you're looking at an item, you say, hey, is this something that they would procure, they'd be interested in? You could go and look up and see if there's similar items, or if there's that item, certain kind of bandage on this catalog. And again, everything is about saving right now, saving money, saving time for you, saving time for the procurement, streamlining. You've heard a lot of these phrases come up here in the last 10 months, 12 months here. So those are some of the benefits. I'll get into the nuts and bolts here. Again, I talked about I didn't mention, but over 8,000 acquisition personnel who do procurement that would have access to these schedules. Again, multiple award schedules. There are specifically an offer situation where you can submit a proposal anytime, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can submit it. It's always open, and you would submit it in. We would receive it in our office. We would do some initial checks on it, and then send it to the contracting area. If there's anything that's missing, because there's all kinds of checklists in the solicitation for what would need to be included, the person who receives it initially would reach back and say, hey, this is something we need a little more information here. We need you to provide this so it's compliant to be sent over for review. Just trying to help you through those steps.
Hi, Joshua. We have a question. Are you still on page 2?
Yes, I'm still on page 2.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely, no problem at all. You also, as I talked about, the commercial, medical, and healthcare, so that's kind of the umbrella. Now, if you have specific questions about an item, you'd be talking with us about the scope and see if it fits within our schedules, or it may fall under GSA's schedules because they still have some of the medical. These are some of the considerations, and again, if you are looking to submit proposal to have the opportunity to work with, get on schedules, these are things you want to keep in mind. These are also things that our contracting officials go through and look at as they're going through and evaluating with obviously TAA and the Vets First program. You'll see later on in the CCST, that's a shorthand for the contract catalog, vendors can actually go in or people who are procuring off the list can actually go in, federal government people can go in, do a search for specific Vet First or Hub Zone or any of the different small business designations, and they can actually search specifically and say, we're looking for bandages that are provided by, and this sort of small business situation, or so they can do a search if they are, so they'll come in, they'll look at who is available, and they'll go ahead and walk through their procurement and make that decision based on FAR and everything. But that's one thing that you want to make sure you include in everything you submit. We also, like I said earlier, it's open to all federal agencies and the state and local governments it's the Stafford Act for disaster preparedness. And this just gives a little more in terms of the authority to use FSS. Both military and civilian are able to provide or able to buy off of it. Here's a lot of the FAR and regulatory references if you have specific questions. And you can definitely look them up under here, but also, it just basically it goes to any government agency, any federal government agency can procure off of these lists. So if you have bandages, if you have services, a doctor or registered nurse, you could have them search on the CCST and find you, and they would reach out to you and say, hey, because our contracting people will go through and make sure that everything that's needed is in that file. Everything like you'll walk through the delivery. We have certain delivery we're asking for. And then when the buyer goes in and sees that, then they can contact you and say, this is the exact number I need, because you're doing you're setting up an indefinite purchase with the FSS. Then they come in and say, this is the definite quantity, the definite delivery that we need. And you walk from that point. So you already have a lot of the bases covered. And so you're just walking through how many do you need and when they reach out to you. Next slide. So what is a schedule? Schedule, I don't know how many of you all even have had experience. I worked at DLA for a while, and that was not schedules. So I came from that world of, not groupings. It was definite quantities, definite delivery date, everything from the start, and that's what you base it on. And then walk into this world where it's different. It's a different setup, and so I would highly encourage to give yourself opportunity. Like I said, we're doing these 3 webinars just to learn about it. It's a different approach, but like when you're talking about, it's a great opportunity for you to provide these items. A great opportunity because all of the federal procuring officials are able to look at these schedules and say, hey, this is what we need. This is, and we want to procure this, and we don't want to have the lead time that we can have with doing it like the procurements at DLA. And it's just a different situation, but different setup. But take time, dig into these multiple award schedule program, information, dig into the IDIQs. Once you grasp that, then it's pretty straightforward in terms of, we list out everything that you need to put in for the solicitations and everything. And we are here all along to provide that support for what the next step is. Each of the schedules has a specific team that works it. Those team members also, they answer emails that are submitted with questions. They answer. There's a phone number that you can call into if you have questions about the contracting side, that they can help you. And then our team works with helping like beforehand, because we are the support area, and so we help get you to the door basically, and then they are the ones who walk you through the process, the actual contracting process. Here's a good slide. I will provide, or I sent these over to Wendy, and I do believe I'm okay, with us providing the slides, because this is a really good slide for you to have. So this lays out very clearly the big picture of what steps you want to take. You would first take down the solicitation, and this is assuming that you have your registration and everything, sam.gov, and you have all those registration. This is the email that you would send when you put the solicitation together. You would call out in the solicitation, so there's a list of maybe 40 or 50 different specific things for that solicitation. So you would have you would specify which things you're quoting on, which items, which services that you are quoting on within the solicitation. And you would provide the pricing that's within an Excel spreadsheet, and you would submit all that to this FSS offers and extensions at va.gov. And then they're the ones who would take a look at that, go through and just check, see if there's anything that is needed before it actually goes to the team. And like I said, if there's especially signatures, is something that, because we require a wet signature, it has to be signed. It can't be there's certain requirements that they require. So yes, that would be something that they would catch usually this first mailbox. Also, they would just let you know if the pricing, if you didn't provide the pricing, or the emails end up being larger megabytes. I think the max is 5, so you break it into 5 different emails, and all that also is called out in the solicitation. But you would go ahead and send the first email, say first 1 of 5 emails. So if they got 1, 3, 4, and 5, they would reach out to you and say, hey, we're missing email number 2. Just another example of the kind of thing that they catch and make sure that everything is in line for when the contract specialist reviews it. We can go ahead and take a minute to look at questions. I'm totally good with that.
One question in the Q&A right now. I did, for some reason, the Q&A disappeared, but I see one person was able to add their question in the Q&A right around the time this session started. So I did reopen the Q&A. So please don't forget to place your questions in the Q&A. We'll go ahead and get started with the first one, which was, if I get awarded a year-long pharmaceutical contract, will I automatically get a federal supply schedule number?
So the way that these are set up, they're 5-year contracts, and then they have options. If you went ahead and you submitted all of the proposal, and the contracting officials went through and found that everything lined up, and compliance was in line. I'm using very general terms right now, just because it's we don't need to get into that at this point. But they go through, they find everything, the price fair and reasonable, all of that. Then they would go ahead and say, yes, you can be added on. Then you would be added on to the schedule, and you're asking if you get a number, so that you could basically like let others know that you have gotten that award. That's sam.gov. Sorry, Wendy, it was a number that they're asking.
Oh, sorry, Joshua.
That's all good. Is it were they asking a number?
Yes, they asked if they would automatically get a federal supply schedule number.
So yeah, there would be, I don't know how they go about it, but you would get a number that you could then provide. So basically, when you would be added to the contracting registration, and so when they went in, so if you were added for like bandages and wheelchairs, when the person who's procuring goes into the CCST, then if they searched wheelchairs, then your information would pop up as one of the possibilities. And so if they clicked on your your listing, then it would list all of the terms that are in place already. So, we support warranty, we can support, delivery in this time. And so that's how they would see that's how they would find you. And then they would have your phone number, and they'd reach out to you and say, hey, we found you and we want to get this number, this quantity. And so then that would have its own, award number. But yes, you would get I guess you'd call it sort of an award number for being added to the schedule that you could provide to people. I hope that helps with the question.
Thank you. The next question is there a flow chart to show the steps to be awarded a federal supply schedule contract?
Let me check on that and get back. Could I get back to you on that, Wendy?
Okay. And then what I'll do is everyone's going to receive an email already. But if there are any questions for me to follow up on, I'll send you a separate email to respond to your question. The next question is, can a service area be dictated, or must it be open to everyone? We are a service-based provider for prosthetics.
So that would be probably a question more specifically for the contracting team. I do know when I arrived, it was, it would need to be provided for the whole, but I believe that they are moving towards that you wouldn't have to cover every single one. I think that's something that we're working through right now. Let me I'm gonna write that down as one to follow up with our services team.
And I'll send it to you, Josh. You don't have to worry about writing it down. I'll forward over all the pending questions.
Perfect. But yeah, that's something I can check into and see, get an answer for that for you. That's a great question.
So there's another question that said, I might have missed it, but is this for medical only?
Yes. Thank you for checking on that. Yes, it's commercial medical only.
Thank you. I know there was a question earlier that asked about SAVE. They asked, what is Essence SAVE? Are you able to basically communicate again what the SAVE for SAVE means for those that might have missed it?
Absolutely. So the S is strategic relationships. And I say that just in terms of if it's an indefinite opportunity, you're making those connections that down the road you can actually go to the VA and let them know, like, hey, this item is we're on the schedule for this item. Like, this is something where you get on, I term it more strategic decision, because there's more research and more time being put in the proposal, just because of a different type of proposal. But if you get added onto the schedule, this is an opportunity that you can definitely let other people know, like at the VA, and say, hey, we're on the schedule for this. any of the other, HHS, any of the other agencies, federal agencies, you can say, hey, we're on the list for this. And that's sort of what you help to let them know that it's available, if that makes sense. You're just available then, if they would happen to find you on their own, but also you can work to let them know that you're on the list. And then the A is access, and that was just, it's a different field, different group of people that it's a, all federal procurement people who buy medical. You have access to, it's not just one agency. It's not just DLA. It's not just specifically only VA, although, like I talked about, there's a lot of business that was done with VA. You are getting access to connect even with other states. Like I said, with any money that comes in for the emergencies that happen in the states, you have that opportunity to connect with them because they can buy off of the list as well. If it's an emergency that's been called out by the president and federal money's gone into it, they can use that federal money towards. So it just gets you access to connect with different people than a usual approach. And then V is veterans, direct impact. That's where always about is serving and supporting the veterans. And this is multiple ways that you're serving and supporting the veterans. And then E is expanded network, where we attempt to provide things like a newsletter that provides information about what's going on, opportunities. We I think in the 2 newsletters ago, we were talking about some of the items with more demand, and we had put those out on the website and said, hey, this is something that we have a lot of demand for. If you can provide it, by all means, we'd love for you to get connected in and submit a proposal, etc. So we try to help expand the network of people that you are showing your product to that way. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that.
No problem. And then just one more question, because we are getting a lot of great questions.
Awesome.
Someone asked about, is this relevant to IT services? So the VA Federal Supply Schedule is one of the contracting vehicles that we use basically to solicit for the type of, whether it's a service or goods that we need. For today's session, the VA, I'm sorry, I said the VA Federal Supply Schedule, excuse me.
It's okay.
There are a ton of contracting vehicles that the VA uses to solicit for the goods and services that we need. For today's session, the VA Federal Supply Schedule is addressing those medical needs.
Yes.
If you are unfamiliar with how VA does business, what VA is soliciting for, I recommend that after this session concludes, or if this session does not apply to you because you don't sell medical goods or services, that you go over to our YouTube channel and view our most recent Doing Business with the Department of Veteran Affairs session where we cover that information. We also talk about a few of the contracting vehicles that we use. So I'll go ahead. I have not forgotten any of the questions in the Q&A. Please do not duplicate your questions in the Q&A because I see all of them once you submit them. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Josh because I know we're at 1:34 and I want to make sure that we're able to he's not able to just get through the presentation, but we can also address some of your questions throughout. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you, Josh, and then I'll kind of stop you maybe in a few more minutes so we can cover some of the other questions because these are really great questions.
No, that's why I like knowing kind of what's going through your minds in the audience, because that's the direct hits that I can provide information and help connect the dots. So absolutely, thank you so much, Wendy. So I'm going to also drop in the chat our fss.va.gov. That's a really good resource to just go ahead and do some research and find out about us. Just again, I'm trying to give you different windows, different ways to learn and gain knowledge so that you can kind of put together in your mind and say, okay, this is what we are looking at, sign up for. This is what we are putting in when we're putting in a proposal. So, excuse me. So you would submit, again, we're doing this big picture, broad sweep, the steps for obtaining. You submit it's sent through to our contracting specialists, and they go ahead and review everything, and they get back to you for clarifications, information. So like if I mean, you'll see the next step, that they'll definitely negotiate. But I'm thinking, like any of the stuff that you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I gave them all the information that they need, they'll get back to you, they go over it, they will get back to you and ask for any clarifications, any other information from the contracting side. And then you can see here the website, like I already dropped in the box. And what our goal, and again, this has been our goal for several years. It's what we aim for. Things have been changing throughout the government. Everybody's aware of that, so just keep that in mind. But our goals have been 180 days for non-services and 240 days for the procurement, the action lead times, and then for modifications, 60 days. So our goal is, once we get through to the contracting side, they go through and they work with you for the clarifications, negotiations, all of that. And figure out what is needed, get that from you, and then walk down that road and figure out if it can be added to the schedule. Some of the resources, the CCST, that's something that is very, very helpful. You can find on our FSS website, but you can search on there. If you're like, do they sell a certain kind of bandage, and you can just put bandage in and thousands of listings will come up. And I think the second slide, we're talking about 900,000 different items. So you can see, hey, these are the things, and then it goes into as much detail as our system allows. We're continuing to evolve with our systems and trying to get them, so they can provide even more. But we enter as much as we can, so you can differentiate, and you'll see the pricing on there. So that also is one way that as you're looking and saying, hey, is this an option? Is this something that we want to sign up or submit a proposal for? You can go online and search on the CCST and see what kind of pricing it's falling into. And that gives you that opportunity to say, hey, is this something that's worth our time, worth the juice, for the squeeze and going through these steps. The GSA eLibrary, GSA Advantage, and GSA eBuy are also all really helpful resources. We list those because again, GSA is who basically gave us the authority to manage these 9 schedules. So the stuff that they run on their multiple award schedules, it's similar animals. So that can give you information about multiple award schedules in other areas, or if somebody's asking about IT, that's something that you can check for. GSA provide some of the IT. So just resource wise, it's a wide net that you can kind of put out there to learn about multiple award schedules. What things are in the CCST? So here's the listing of all the different information. When the contracting official goes in there and looks and says, hey, this is the item we want. So you'll see the contract effective dates in there. So they'll know, like, if it's coming to the end of the contract, if it's just beginning. Your POCs and any of the socioeconomic categories that you qualify for will all be listed in there. Warranty information is something that we talk a lot about because it just is a part of the commercial medical stuff. That will be listed in there. You can see over 900,000 line items, and 15,000 pharmaceutical line items. But you can search each of these different parts. So if they're coming in and looking for specific socioeconomic category, or if they're they want to find everybody who offers this specific med search item, and then they can do the comparisons. But this is all the information that'll pop up when they put that in there. And let me just drop in the what's at the bottom there, so you can have it in the chat as well. Might give a little easier access. So that's where you can go and look up the CCST, the contract catalog search tool. One cool thing about it is it tells when it was last updated, so you can see, if it's like a weekend. And here's a little picture. It lets you know that, hey, this is the most up to date stuff. Or if you see this, day behind, which I have not seen that, but just so you know when you're searching, then you can say, hey, I'll come back and search once it's caught up to this most recent date or time. I really appreciate that because it just, with today, in this day, with all technology and stuff, it's hard to know whether, uh, things are up to date. It's hard to check on that. So that's just something they include that is very, very helpful. Also, as you submit your proposal, you'll have like the determination of financial responsibility document that you'll fill out. Talks about some of your past performance. Um, the fair and reasonable pricing, that's another aspect for when you submit that you want to keep in mind. The commercial items, so these schedules actually have a line item that is essentially like a new item that you think falls within the scope of the solicitation or the schedule and is not offered. You can actually submit and say, hey, this item is what something that I would like to provide, something that I think falls in line with this schedule. And I say all of that just in keeping in mind the commercial items definition in the FAR, like all of it lines up with the regulations. So you just want to make sure that it lines up with that, especially for items, for commercial items. But that's something you can vote on. You can commit and say, you can say this is something that we'd like you to consider adding to the schedule, and then you provide whatever other information that the contracting area would need. Next slide. So here's some more resources. You have the FSS homepage. You have the schedule programs. There's a link for prospective contractors. So if you haven't heard of NAC or any of our areas, you can get more information and just kind of get to know who we are, and get to know about doing business with us. We have a link here about getting on schedules and the offer submission. And then I talked about the contractor responsibilities. That's something else that is listed here that you can go to that link and find out more information. There's just a lot on our websites, a lot of information that we can provide for you. So some of the things that you want to think about, is there a need for my product or service? Which federal agencies have purchased these items? So again, talking about going back into the CCST and searching to see if there's demand. You want to think about where these agencies are located. So you were talking earlier about the services, and what area do you cover, and is that what is laid out in the request for proposal. The price, obviously, of the different things that you provide, you want to look at. I also did provide for you contacts here. These are the contacts for the different teams. So if you have questions about that specific team, and now at the bottom, at the help desk, that's what I was talking about earlier. Putting into the chat as well. Sometimes it's just easier to grab it from that. Those are contract specialists who are working on the contracts, and so they would, if you have questions, you're going through what is asked for submission, you can go ahead and let them know what question you might have contract wise. We also do have a phone number. Pass that in there too, that you can call, and you can ask them direct questions, just trying to understand how the process and the contracting side of all of it. So we do have a little bit extra time here at the end. If you have questions, I think that's very helpful for for this kind of setting, just again, because I want to make sure that you walk away with the information you need, that the questions that you have are provided for as much as I can right now on the spot, and then provide more information as I'm able to do more research. So I'll just go ahead and open it up again for questions.
We do have a few questions that were pending. So for Paul, I want to make sure that we address all of your questions. I know you put a few questions or even like comments to that question in the Q&A. If we did not, can you just place the entire question that you have in the Q&A so I can make sure we didn't miss anything if we did miss your question? The next question is, if you have a GSA mass schedule, can one use it as an avenue into the federal supply schedule?
So that would definitely give you idea, kind of how we function. There's with the regulations, there's very specific lines for what items they have on their MAS and what we have on our MAS. So it can provide, it can be used as an avenue in terms of, you have an idea of what types of things we're going to ask for when we're doing the proposal and everything, but we buy different items, or the schedules are for different items. I want to make sure I make that distinction very clear. There, when there's like gray area about it, it goes back to what is in the solicitation and in the scope, and again, we have certain specific lines. We'd have to do research, to determine, but which is which. But I would say yes, you can use it as an avenue in just in regards of like what to expect, and you'd probably be more familiar filling out the request for a proposal and submitting it to FSS. But the things that we would have procured from our schedule are going to be different from what GSA had, what you may have on a GSA schedule. Does that make sense?
If it doesn't, just place it in the Q&A and chat,
Great.
and I'll follow back up with Joshua with the question.
Great.
So I believe with this next question, they were asking if the VA federal supply schedule is used amongst other federal agencies, or is this just a vehicle that the Department of Veteran Affairs uses?
Great question. So the Department of Veteran Affairs, they, like I said, they did $14 billion FY24. $7 billion were to other government agencies. So it's any government agency that their procurement area. So it could be HHS, it could be I'm like blanking right off the top of my head of different agencies, but anything that is a federal agency, they can procure off of this for commercial medical items. That's the only, aspect of it. Like Bureau of Federal Prisons, they do medical stuff, so they would procure medical stuff off of these schedules. So it's not only VA who is procuring and utilizing these schedules, and we actually make efforts to reach out and familiarize any of the other agencies with the schedules, because again, with big picture push over the last year has been efficiency and streamline, and let's not have everybody doing extra work. And so from our perspective, we're trying to work through your proposals and get like the I's and the T's dotted and crossed to say, okay, hey, we've gone through, this is a responsible vendor. We've gone through pricing here, whichever other agency that's procuring commercial medical, here's what this vendor has on the schedule, and have them go to you. So it's not only VA, a largest amount of our dollars is VA at this point, but we are looking to continue to expand that, and it just does still have $7 billion in FY24 was to other government agencies, and that we continue to increase that each year. But it is open to other federal government agencies, and also to the states when the Stafford Act is in place. If there's, when we had in North Carolina the flooding, and that was declared emergency area that North Carolina could procure for medical stuff off of ours. I wasn't there during COVID. I wasn't at FSS, but I know that a lot of medicine and stuff was procured from the schedules by the states during COVID because it fell under Stafford Act. So again, it gets you in front of an opportunity in front of other people, than kind of the usual approach. I feel like it's something that's it's you're doing a couple of different approaches to get different audiences. Sorry, I went a little long, but that's something that we're really excited to be able to serve all the rest, the other agencies as well. Thank you for the question.
Right. So there's another question. How different is the VA Federal Supply Schedule from the GSA mass schedule?
So we try to stay in lockstep with kind of how they have their solicitation and whatnot, because again, they gave us that authority, but it's very similar, but just the items are different. So they did run these schedules, and then they handed it off, I think it was in 1960, to FSS and VA to manage them. Very similar in approach, process. We use different software. We're trying to get that aligned as well, so that it's much more seamless, but very similar to what GSA and their MAS is. It's just a different actual product services than what GSA has on their schedules. Another good.
So the next question. Oh, sorry about that.
You're good.
The next question: if we are an SCVOSB reseller of other items, is anything specifically required to break into reselling pharma or medical related items?
That's a very good question. I don't know of anything specifically, as long as you're, following within going back to my slides here, TAA and all of that. I would say take a look at the solicitation and see, if there's anything that's very divergent from what you already do, but there shouldn't be a difference. Sorry, I can't go into a lot of detail because I haven't specifically procured, I haven't been on the contracting teams, but I don't know of many differences. That's definitely a question that you could reach out to that 708 number that I provided, 708-786-7737, because again, that's our contracting folks, and they would probably be able to give you a better insight into that. But I don't know of anything that's like a specific, because we're following the FAR and the other regulations, just like the other procurements would be doing. So there shouldn't be a big difference. But again, I said that tongue in cheek because I don't work directly in that. I hope that helps.
Thank you. In the eOffer portal, when processing the offer, if the startup springboard is selected, is there a list of required documents that are needed to complete the offer?
So if you go into the schedule solicitation, that should have a list of the documents that you would need to complete. And it may be different for each of the different 9 schedules. But the very core items, like the responsibility, documentation, that sort of stuff, that all should be in all of them. But that's where I would start, is going to that the schedule solicitation and see the list in there of what is required.
Thank you. Before we continue on with the questions, I see we have approximately like 5 more minutes that are left. I do want to push out our exit poll. So I am going to open up the poll. This polling is going to, again, help us to gather feedback now on how confident you feel about the topic we discussed today. And basically, we want to hear about your plan to apply it while navigating future procurement opportunities. So I'm going to go ahead and open this poll and leave it open. The first polling question is just going to be select one or the other. We want to assess your confidence on the information that you did learn today. Again, this is a three-part series. So of course, the information that you learned today is more on a beginner level. And so if you do not feel comfortable, you can, state that I don't feel comfortable, because I know we had about 60% that were not really experienced about the VA federal supply schedule. The second question is to assess your actions afterwards. So we want to know, and I just added in a few, responses just to see if you're like, okay, I just need to take a little bit more time to, before I take any action to learn more, right? I need to look at this part 2 and part 3 to see if, this would be a good fit for my business, or I need to adjust my procurement practices. So those are going to be my next actions. Or I figure, I've been networking with a lot of businesses in the chat, and so I plan to collaborate with them on any upcoming FSS opportunities, submitting proposals. For those, I know it was a smaller amount that were comfortable with or already familiar with the federal supply schedule. If you feel like, okay, I already know this information, I don't need to attend part 2 or 3, your next step, what is going to be your next action? Submitting a proposal. Or lastly, the VA federal supply schedule doesn't, solicit for any of the goods or services that my business offers. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to look at some of the other contracting vehicles that VA uses. So if you could please take the time to just go in and respond to those questions. Once you do respond to them, they will go away. And so now I'm going to get back to the Q&A and cover our next question, which is, once accepted on the federal supply schedule, are you awarded by best practice socioeconomic set aside, or is it similar to the solicitation on SAM.gov? So that's the next question, Joshua.
Absolutely. So you would basically provide in your proposal which one of those, if there's socioeconomic program that you fall under, all of that. And then when the procuring person from the, let's just say, other agency, the HHS, comes over and they want to procure, but they are procuring, within the FAR, and they are doing, test for 2, all of that, then they would take all of that into consideration and look, here are, here's this number of vendors who have this available, and they would, go ahead and walk down that road of procuring it, taking all the socioeconomic program decisions into place for their specific procurement. So we are basically saying, here's the sign to say, hey, here's the vendor who can provide this. They completed the responsibility. Here's pricing, and then each person who is doing their individual procurement for, again, I like to say the other agencies because it's a little clearer in the mind, but they would walk down and walk through, the socioeconomic decisions and those, the weight of those as they decide, which vendor that they are going to go with. So it also, the other thing to keep in mind is they come and say, we need 60 of this this bandage. That lets this is what the actual definite need is. We're just saying indefinitely, at whatever point we're going to need an indefinite number. And so I'm trying to make that distinction to say it turns more into a usual procurement where you have definite quantity once the vendor or once the procurement official reaches out from HHS or Bureau of Federal Prisons. They say, hey, we need 63. What would be the specific terms? I see that you offer this type of pricing, this kind of delivery, and then they make their assessment and their trade-offs in their final procurement. Thank you. That's a great question and a great distinction to make.
Thank you. There's another question. Do most small companies hire an expert to help them with an application or proceed on their own? Also, are liaisons available?
So the liaisons, I would definitely, so if it's contracting, reach out to that phone number that I included. If it is not contracting, you can by all means, here I'll put mine in there as well, Joshua. So this is my email address. If it's more general, about working with MAS and all that sort of thing, like I'm more than willing to help out. I can also point you toward contracting wise, but those are we are trying to provide and educate about the program to you and answering questions kind of before you get into the contracting world, which is then answered by the actual contracting teams, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Can we use the help desk even if we are not commercial medical?
I mean, you could reach out to them to ask a question. I don't know if um since their main focus, or their main place that they work is the commercial. I don't know if they would be able to go into a different things, but I mean, you could reach out to them and just try to walk through it and see, if it's something that, if you have like a question about, if it's something that you're trying to see if it fits under the commercial definition, that sort of thing. If it has to do with working with the schedules, by all means, I would say reach out to them. I just don't want to waste a phone call for you reaching out to them if it's something that doesn't have to do with their areas.
We do have 3 more questions pending in the Q&A. I know that we are 2 minutes over. Is it okay to cover these 3 questions, or do you want to just cover it
Absolutely.
afterwards? Okay, perfect. So the next question, does our medical pharma, non-prescription but used in hospitals for wound care and other conditions, product need to be reviewed and approved by the VA National Formulary? In parentheses, they have the Pharmacy Benefits Management Services before we can be awarded an FSS contract?
So that would be a question you definitely want to ask the contracting field. That would be reaching out to that phone number, the 708 number, to ask them, because that falls within like compliance for filling out the proposal. I don't. I would definitely reach out to them first and ask, because I don't want you filling out the request for proposal and then them come back and say that they need you to take this step. So I would definitely reach out to them and ask that.
The second question is, once accepted on the federal supply schedule, are you awarded by best price or social economic set aside? Or I feel like we asked this question before.
It would fall under each procurement by the
Okay.
federal agency.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one, did I miss it, or have you already answered best practices for basically generating the best price when you're submitting your schedule? We are more on the GSA mass schedule, so any tips you can offer would be great.
So that I would say send an email to me, because that's going to fall under the second and third sessions.
Okay, perfect. So this is the last of the questions that we have in the Q&A. Thank you so much, Joshua, for hosting I'm talking about hosting, for participating in this part 1 session of the federal supply schedule. Everyone just stay tuned for part 2 and 3. It will be located on VetBiz. If you are subscribed to receive notifications from the Department of VA's OSDBU office, you will receive that email gov delivery notification. Thank you so much for spending your day with us. If you have any questions, I place my office email address, osdbu.com@va.gov, information in the chat. Mr. Anderson, Joshua Anderson, also placed his email address in the chat. You can always reach out to us and we'll respond to you. Again, you will receive a copy of this recording, as well as you'll receive a link to this recording, as well as to the presentation in about 2 business days. It'll be via the email address that you use to register. Joshua, is there anything that you would like to say to the audience before we go ahead and conclude? Okay, that is everything. Have a good rest of you guys' day.